Have you ever wondered why the woman who stands quietly in her own truth seems to unsettle the world around her? Why a single, self-possessed glance can rattle the very people who once vowed to love her? There's something mysterious in the woman who no longer bows to the winds of approval. Something ancient moves behind her eyes, as if she's met both heaven and hell within herself, and returned intact. Carl Jung wrote that the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. When a woman does that, she births a presence that can neither be owned nor predicted. Men sense it. Some admire it. Others, especially those living from their unexamined shadows, mistake it for danger. They confuse her self-knowledge for rebellion, her peace for defiance, her independence for rejection. And perhaps, in a mythic way, they are right. She is rebelling against illusion, defying dependence, rejecting the false self projected upon her by centuries of fear. The story often begins simply. A girl learns early that being loved means being soft, pleasing, compliant. She learns the subtle rituals of shrinking, how to apologize for her voice, how to dilute her opinions, how to smile just enough to seem safe. Each time she trades her truth for approval, a small echo answers from the dark, "You were meant for more." As years pass, that echo grows louder, until it becomes unbearable. One day she listens. That's where the awakening begins. When she finally turns inward, she discovers the forgotten kingdom, her own unconscious. There, in that unseen terrain, lie the exiled parts of her: anger, desire, clarity, power, discernment. Jung might call them her shadow and her anima, others might call them her wildness. At first she fears them, because she was taught that good women do not rage, do not hunger. But slowly she learns that these forces were never evil. They were merely rejected, waiting for her recognition. Every step she takes toward that recognition shifts the magnetic field between herself and others. Men who have not faced their own shadows often recoil. They sense, even without words, that her awareness exposes their hidden fractures. Her calm gaze becomes a mirror in which they see not who she blames them to be, but who they refuse to become. Some call her too much. Some call her intimidating. Yet she does not attack, she simply exists in wholeness, and wholeness can feel like thunder to those living in fragments. The unconscious deals in symbols, not sentences. So picture this: a man who has spent his life seeking validation through control meets a woman who cannot be controlled. What happens inside him? The archetypal drama wakes. His ego, frightened of dissolution, warns him that he will vanish if he cannot dominate. But the deeper truth is more humbling: he doesn't fear her. He fears his own potential to change. Because knowing her would require knowing himself. You see, the woman who knows herself no longer plays the polarity dance of predator and pleaser. She recognizes that attraction born of fear isn't intimacy, it's reenactment of trauma. She sees the pattern, how society trained both sexes to bond through wounds. And she refuses to keep bleeding for validation. When she loves, it's no longer to fill a void. It's to share overflowing presence. That's a different frequency altogether. Imagine her walking through a crowded city street. She's not dressed to conquer or seduce, yet heads turn. There's something gravitational about serenity. People perceive in her the peace they've been chasing through striving. Some look away quickly, as if caught staring at the sun. Because real self-acceptance shines in a way that makes pretenders squint. Jung suggested that individuation, the process of becoming fully oneself, is a sacred confrontation between the ego and the unconscious. For many men, encountering a self-aware woman catalyzes that confrontation. If they've built their masculinity on dominance or external reasoning, her intuitive clarity dismantles those constructions. She becomes the anima incarnate, the living symbol of the soul he's neglected. That encounter can feel like awakening, or annihilation. The difference lies in whether he chooses reflection or projection. Projection, especially in relationships, is the mind's way of avoiding growth. A man who fears his tenderness may call a sensitive woman emotional. One who fears his anger may call her unstable. Each label is a veiled confession. The woman who knows herself hears the confession beneath the accusation. She does not absorb it. She observes. She whispers inwardly, "This is his shadow, not my shape." That simple knowing frees her from the cage of reaction. Yet this freedom often threatens those still imprisoned by their own unmet selves. They may mock her spiritual language, minimize her strength, attempt to draw her back into old games. But she has learned the wisdom of the Stoics: no one can disturb the inner citadel unless invited. Detachment is not coldness, it is clarity that refuses to barter truth for attention. And here is the paradox: when she stops needing reassurance, her presence becomes even more magnetic. Not because she is withholding, but because her energy speaks of sovereignty. To those capable of genuine encounter, she's luminous. To those still running from their reflection, she's unbearable. This is the Jungian warning: consciousness amplifies polarity. The brighter the light, the sharper the shadow it casts. A woman integrated in her depths will stir both devotion and resistance. It is not her responsibility to shrink in order to comfort the unready. You, listening now, may feel the echo of this polarity in your own life. Perhaps you've tasted what it means to stand in authenticity and watched people scatter. Perhaps you've noticed how honesty can empty a room faster than anger ever could. That emptiness is not rejection, it is the clearing where your genuine tribe will eventually gather. Loneliness often precedes belonging. To fear such a woman is to misunderstand what she represents. She is not a threat to love, she is a threat to illusion. Her power dismantles dependency. She reveals where affection was actually control, where romance masked insecurity, where commitment covered avoidance. She burns away pretense, not to destroy connection, but to rebuild it on cleaner soil. Whoever can meet her there finds not a battlefield, but a sanctuary. There's a moment in the individuation process when the old habits beg for resurrection. The ego whispers, "Be softer, or they'll leave." The body remembers the praise that came from being agreeable. But the soul has tasted truth, it can't return to counterfeit currency. So she endures the withdrawal from external approval. It aches like detox, but with every hour she grows lighter. Because each need she releases frees energy once spent performing. That released force becomes creativity, humor, sensuality, wisdom. She becomes more human, not less. The Stoics would say she now governs what is within her domain, her choices, her attitudes, her interpretations. Everything else, opinions, outcomes, other people's comfort, is divine weather, beyond command, only to be witnessed. This realization deepens her calm. Men who once felt emboldened by her compliance notice that their control no longer works. They may escalate, plead, or vanish. But the seasons inside her no longer change for their moods. To some, she begins to feel mythic, like the goddess who stands with both torch and serpent. In Jungian symbolism, this is the seed of transformation, the ability to hold opposites without fragmenting. Light and dark, love and rage, giving and boundaries all coexist in her. Her wholeness dissolves the fairy tale of the good girl or femme fatale. She is both river and mountain. Understand this clearly: her power does not come from superiority, but from integration. She has made peace with her contradictions. That peace scares those who want simple stories, the saint or the sinner, the muse or the mother. When a woman embodies both tenderness and truth, desire and discernment, she collapses these roles. The fragile egos around her must then rewrite their scripts, and few enjoy rewriting reality. But not all men fear her. Some, having walked their own shadow paths, recognize her as ally. They don't shrink from her intensity, they speak her language of depth. In their presence, she doesn't need to hide her intelligence or soften her spirit. Their union is less a collision of power than a dance of mutual recognition, two consciousnesses bowing to what is divine in each other. Attraction here transcends possession, it becomes alchemy. For such connection, both must have faced solitude. There's no shortcut. The man who has explored his own darkness no longer projects it, he holds it responsibly. The woman who has befriended her shadow no longer fears abandonment, she understands that everything she seeks begins within. Together they build love not on need, but on freedom, a dynamic where fear transforms into reverence. Still, many will never reach that stage. Society continues to reward surface personas and punish inner work. It idolizes the charming mask and neglects the reflective heart. Yet the archetype keeps appearing, the self-knowing woman, whether in myth, film, or life, who refuses reduction. She is not an innovation of modern feminism. She is an eternal figure, the priestess at Delphi, the prophetess in the desert, the thinker in solitude. Her message echoes through centuries: know thyself. The warning is implicit: ignore this, and you'll fear anyone who does not. Imagine a world where men and women both brought their unconscious into the light. The feminine would no longer need to hide her intuition. The masculine would no longer need to armor itself against vulnerability. Fear would yield to curiosity. The war between genders would dissolve into dialogue between souls. That world begins whenever one person dares to understand themselves fully, and thus stops demanding others play unfinished parts. You are being invited into that experiment of consciousness. Each time you tell the truth of your feelings, even awkwardly, you chip away at the collective mask. Each time you refuse to confuse attention with affection, you rewrite ancient scripts of dependency. Each time you meet your reflection without flinching, you inspire others to do the same. That, more than anything, is how the archetype evolves, through lived example, not argument. The woman who knows herself no longer asks permission to glow. She's aware that her authenticity might provoke resistance, but she also trusts the law of resonance. What is meant for truth will be magnetized to truth. She walks forward, leaving open doors rather than explanations. Her peace is her statement. In the silence after chaos, she learns the sweetness of self-companionship. She realizes that loneliness was never absence of love, only absence of alignment. The more she listens inwardly, the more the universe speaks outwardly. Friends arrive with mirroring spirits. Lovers approach with less performance. Life, sensing her readiness, responds in kind. And yet, she remains unattached to outcomes. Jung would say she has withdrawn the projections, the unreal expectations that kept her chained to fantasy. Love, now, is not a destination but a continual act of seeing. She looks at the world not through the eyes of hunger, but of wonder. The man before her, the child beside her, the stranger across the table, all mirrors, each returning her to herself. When people whisper that men fear her, she smiles softly. Fear is only the first stage of all. Many who once called her intimidating will, in time, name her teacher. Others will fade from her story, unable to grow alongside her. Both outcomes are equally sacred. Growth often looks like loss until the new equilibrium reveals itself. If she could offer one silent blessing to those who misunderstand her, it would be this: may you meet the parts of yourself you keep running from. Then you'll see that she was never enemy, only example. And you, who listen, who feel the stirring of this truth, remember that knowing yourself is not arrogance, but allegiance to life itself. The ego may tremble, society may gossip, relationships may shift, but the soul, once awakened, will not return to sleep. Self-knowledge is contagious, it calls forth the same courage in others. Eventually, even fear bows. So let her walk through the world, not to prove, not to please, but to be. Let her laughter dethrone false hierarchies. Let her calm rewrite the sound of power. In her presence, the air itself learns honesty. And when the noise of approval fades, she stands alone, unlonely, unmoved, utterly awake. Because the woman who knows herself no longer seeks to be understood. She has become understanding itself.